I'm not a big fan of, the police and everything,
They're like harass us and like say we steal, saying we're stealing stuff from people and that.
You trust the police?
No.
Making fun of the guard because he's just a retard, doesn't know what's going on, and blah, 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 blah.
Here at the Saskatchewan Native Theatre Company, teens from troubled backgrounds take their experiences off the street and onto the stage.
Damn straight, Corporal!
18-year-old Lanny McDonald knows what it's like to catch the eye of police.
I was walking down the street or whatever, and the cops just pulled me over. I was going to my girlfriend's house, I was trooping. And they just pulled me over for no reason, however, pushed me into the side, grabbed my bag, and started dumping my bag onto the street or whatever, going through my stuff. And I was just blank, I didn't know what to say or do.
Their experience has a familiar ring. 18-year-old Jordan Weenie is uneasy when he sees police.
I'd be riding my bike and I'd see a police car by me or something. I'd be getting scared, like, I don't have the receipts on me, my brother's not here, and this is my brother's bike, and just getting nervous about stuff like that.
Matthew Spencer is 20 years old.
If there's a crime that happens, and they automatically look at the native guy. It's native guys who have it tough around here and stuff like that. That's just the way I feel.
Far from Saskatoon, Erica Stonechild has an eye on the future, planning to put a new home on this Manitoba reserve for her family. But first, she says the past must be put to rest.
It's taken 13 years, but somehow or another, justice will be served somehow, some way. And, they're going to have to take a good look at their practices in the police department and how they deal with people in general.
Neil Stonechild's death has come to symbolize the divide in the city of Saskatoon. Answering the questions about how he died will be a pivotal step in bridging that divide.
The inquiry into Stonechild's death was headed by Justice David Wright. It held 8 months of hearings and heard from dozens of witnesses. Neil Stonechild's family testified, and so did his best friend, Jason Roy. The inquiry also heard from members of the Saskatoon Police who had conducted the original investigation, and from the 2 officers the RCMP suspected had detained Stonechild on that bitterly cold night, Constables Larry Hardwig and Brad Sanger. Like Hardwig, Sanger denied having anything to do with the teenager's death.
Brad, do you have any knowledge as to how Neil Stonechild wound up in a field by the Hitachi building in the north end of Saskatoon?
No.
Did you take him there?
No.
But when Justice Wright issued his final report in October of 2004, he made it very clear that he didn't believe the 2 constables. As the CBC's David Common reports, Wright said he believed the 2 officers had found Neil Stonechild the night he disappeared and had detained him.
There is no question that Neil Stonechild was observed in the custody of 2 Saskatoon officers and that he was later found with injuries and marks that were likely caused by handcuffs, the commissioner ruled. Those 2 officers are Constables Brad Sanger and Larry Hartwig. There was no conclusion as to what role, if any, they played in his death, though an earlier RCMP investigation named the 2 as suspects in the death. But they were never charged.
Government will act on the recommendations.
And won't be now.
There is insufficient evidence to prosecute any member of the Saskatoon Police Service for any offenses related to the death of Neil Stonechild.
Despite that, Stonechild's mother remains convinced Hartwig and Sanger contributed to her son's death.
They took my son out. They took my son away from me. They didn't investigate, even though I asked them to.
Indeed, the report concludes Saskatoon's police investigation was superficial and shoddy. For instance, the investigator never attended the death scene, never examined the body. Was it part of a whitewash? The inquiry concluded the investigator was either aware of police involvement or suspected police involvement. This friend of Stonechild's has long claimed he saw the teen in a police car the night he disappeared, screaming for his life.
I regret not getting in that car with him that night. I regret it because maybe he'd be alive today.
Autopsy photos also showed bloody markings on Stonechild's nose, which the inquiry concluded were caused by police handcuffs.
Chief Russell Sable.
All of it too much for the city's police chief. Today, he suspended both officers, pending a review next week.
2 weeks later, Chief Russell Sabo announced his decision.
I have therefore this afternoon ordered the dismissal of both Constable Hartwig and Constable Singer from the Saskatoon Police Service, effective today.
Both Hartwig and Sanger have appealed their dismissals, and the police union says it will fight to have them reinstated.
Constable Hartwig and Constable Singer will be back as members of Saskatoon Police Service.
He never had a chance to become a man.
As for Neil Stonechild's mother, she's pleased the officers were fired, but is still looking for justice.
Obviously, it's not closure. There has still been no accounting for the death of this boy. There has been nobody found, for example, to have played a direct role in depositing him in such terrible circumstances where he obviously died.
Neil Stonechild didn't live long enough to make much of a mark in life, except, of course, on those who knew him and loved him. But more than 14 years after his lonely death in that frozen field, his story is helping to change the way police departments operate, not only in Saskatoon, but all over Saskatchewan. In his final report into Stonechild's death, Justice Wright made a number of recommendations. They include recruiting more Aboriginal officers, improving training on race relations, and making it easier for citizens to complain about police misbehavior. Saskatchewan's Justice Minister has promised to act promptly on those recommendations. As for the Saskatoon Police Force, it's going to install satellite tracking systems and video cameras in all its patrol cars, so the movements of its officers and the treatment of those they detain can be monitored at all times. And that's News in Review. I'm Carla Robinson. Thanks for watching. Death in the sky. An ace pilot is killed in a mid-air collision.
Captain Shelby was a greatly respected and talented Snowbird pilot.
You would be truly missed, but never forgotten. We love you.
On News in Review today, a snowbird falls. Hello, I'm Carla Robinson. They are a familiar sight in the sky over Canada and a source of great national pride. 9 little red and white jets streaking through the air at 600 kilometers an hour, wowing crowds at air shows all over Canada and the United States, roaring in tight formation over Parliament Hill on Canada Day. They are, of course, the Snowbirds, Canada's aerobatic flying team. For 35 years, they have been thrilling spectators with their tightly choreographed displays of formation flying. Formations with names like Big Arrow, Card 9, and Crazy 3-on-1. Soaring all together into the clouds, the wings of their planes only about a meter apart. Weaving in and out of each other's path, or splitting into twos and streaking head-on towards each other in a high-speed game of chicken. Over the years, it's estimated 160 million people have watched the team perform. But despite their popularity, the future of the Snowbirds is by no means certain. Prime Minister Paul Martin's government is reviewing Canada's military spending, and some people believe the Snowbirds are a luxury we can no longer afford. Others say the kind of stunt flying the team does is just too dangerous. Just how dangerous it can be was once again made tragically clear in early December of 2004 when 2 Snowbirds collided in midair near their home base in Moose Jaw. One pilot, Captain Miles Selby, was killed. The other pilot, Captain Chuck Mallett, managed to parachute to the ground and was treated for smoke inhalation and shock. The CBC's Rick Boguski reports.
With debris scattered over 3 kilometers, a recovery team spent the day securing the crash site, marking each and every piece of wreckage.
In this case, with 2 aircraft involved and the nature of the debris field, it's quite a substantial undertaking.
All of this comes as a shock for the military. A clear blue prairie sky, perfect conditions for flying. And then suddenly, at 10 a.m. this morning, the crash. It happened not far from Jackie Geiss's farm.
Heard the boom, would have been the planes hitting, and then just that direction there was 2 big puffs of smoke, like one here, and the one on the right, I saw it go down.
31-year-old Captain Miles Selby, a 2-year veteran of the Snowbirds, died instantly.
Captain Selby was a greatly respected and talented Snowbird pilot who clearly loved his job and was loved in return by all members of our community. He will be sorely missed.
Married, Captain Selby was originally from Tawasin, just outside of Vancouver. Today, grieving family members gathered inside this home, too devastated to talk publicly. It's not the first crash for the Snowbirds. The acrobatic team has been involved in at least 9 other incidents over the last 35 years since they first started performing. While questions have been raised about the aging planes, today the military said it wasn't the day to talk about it.
I don't think that's very appropriate at this time of the tragedy. You know, we are concentrating on the families. As I mentioned in French, we fly safe aircraft.
Military crash investigators from Ottawa are expected to be on scene tomorrow, trying to determine the exact cause of the crash, how a routine flying exercise could have ended like this.
Those investigators spent days examining the wreckage of the fatal collision. They also talked to the surviving pilot, Captain Chuck Mallett. But all the military would say was that the pilots were practicing a challenging head-on looping maneuver when something went terribly wrong. As the investigation continued, there were also new questions about what happened after the crash and the amount of time it took for help to arrive. More from the CBC's David Common.
In military circles, the work must go on, in spite of the grief. And so it was today at CFB Moose Jaw that flights resumed. Albeit without the famed Snowbirds, who are preparing to bury one of their own.
In the back of my mind is something that was always, an ultimate goal.
Captain Miles Selby, seen here last August, was killed in Friday's mid-air crash. At the time, he and another pilot were practicing a head-on looping maneuver similar to this when they hit.
Member for Palliser.
Today, there were questions about the rescue.
Why is this Liberal government placing the lives of Canadian airmen at risk just to save a few bucks?
Those questions peaked in Ottawa. Why it took military rescuers 46 minutes to reach the crash site by road. Why their rescue helicopter was removed a decade ago. But even without a rescue chopper, the Snowbirds insist the rescue was rapid.
The search and rescue response followed all the procedures, all the checklists, so we're very satisfied with that.
Captain Selby, the forces also point out, could not have been saved. And the surviving pilot, Captain Chuck Mallett, was picked up by a local civilian ambulance within 18 minutes. Much faster than military rescue helicopters can typically respond.
The reasons why there were not at Moose Jaw is because it has a very much more accessible set of roads around it than other places where training exercises take place.
Critics, however, say the Snowbirds program should be scrapped, its $10 million budget directed elsewhere, and its aging jets, many of which are older than the pilots who fly them, retired.
It's a luxury which I think the time has come to put into questions and perhaps do without.
However, crash investigators have given the planes the green light to fly immediately, leaving open the possibility the crash was caused by human error.
Indications are that it is not a fleet-wide problem, and that's why the Snowbirds are still able to fly at this time.
But they won't be flying just yet. Captain Selby's fatal flight was the last of the Snowbird season.
Captain Selby is the 5th pilot to be killed in a flying accident in the 35-year history of the Snowbirds. and 3 of those accidents have happened in the last 15 years.
Did you see that?
In 1989, Captain Shane Ataya was killed during an air show in Toronto when his jet nosedived into Lake Ontario. In 1998, Captain Michael Vandenbos died following a mid-air collision with another Snowbird jet near Moose Jaw. The 2 pilots were practicing close passes when the wing of one aircraft hit the wing of the other. There have also been some close calls. In 2000, 2 Snowbird jets sustained minor damage when the wing of one grazed the tail of another. Both planes managed to land safely. And in 2001, 2 jets flying in the full 9-plane formation collided over Lake Erie, sending one of the jets plunging into the water. The pilot managed to eject from the aircraft and parachute safely into the lake. Every time there is a major accident, and particularly when a pilot is killed, questions are raised about the safety of the Snowbirds. Some wonder whether it's really worth risking the lives of some of Canada's finest military pilots just to entertain people. Then there's the amount of money it costs to keep the show on the road, about $10 million a year. That money, some military analysts say, could be better spent on other things in our cash-strapped armed forces. A few days after the mid-air collision that killed Captain Miles Selby, an editorial in the Toronto Globe and Mail newspaper called for the team to be disbanded. It's both inordinately expensive and a luxury, the newspaper said, at a time when the Canadian military can ill afford either. It's also unacceptably dangerous to its members. The rewards of maintaining this famed unit no longer match the risks. But don't tell that to the Snowbird pilots or the people of Moose Jaw, the team's home base. The base, that also trains pilots from all over the world, pumps a lot of money into the local economy, and the people are proud of their Snowbirds.
Well, you'll see this one is
one side's lower than the other.
Sharon Cole and her employees make Snowbird uniforms.
There's a lot of emotional benefits to belonging to the team. It makes you really proud to be part of it, and when they all line up out there, they're mine.
As for the pilots themselves, they have trained for years to get the skills and experience they need to become a Snowbird. For them, flying with the team is a dream come true.
This is what I always wanted to do, and I still pinch myself every once in a while, making sure that I am still here.
For pilots like Major Chris Hope, grounding the Snowbirds is something he'd rather not think about.
To me, it's a Canadian icon and an institution, and I hope that it continues. But right now, my job is to help put as safe a show together as we can. So I'm hopeful that the team will stay around for many, many years, because it's to me, it's Canada.
5 days after the fatal crash that killed Captain Miles Selby, Canadians got a glimpse of that special bond the Snowbirds share when the team's pilots and mechanics gathered at their Moose Jaw base to say farewell to their lost friend. The CBC's David Common was there.
In the hangar the Snowbirds call home, in front of the aircraft that bears his name, hundreds of friends and colleagues gathered in honor of Captain Miles Selby.
We have lost a pilot, an officer, a fighter pilot, a teammate, a comrade, a warrior, an opposing solo, a friend, a son and a husband. The world and our hearts are emptier and colder. We have lost Snowbird 8.
As the loss of Miles is felt far beyond the grounds of this wing.
The close-knit Snowbirds community was in tears for much of the ceremony. They paid tribute to the man they all described as a passionate, professional pilot, fondly remembered as Millhouse, his call sign in the air.
Millhouse, you would be truly missed, but never forgotten.